small introduction, sir.
Oh, fine. Oh, fine.
Good afternoon. I welcome all and today's resource person, Dr. H. S. Prabhakar, for first session of our FDP on cybersecurity. Dr. H. S. Prabhakar is completed BE from Malnad College of Engineering, Hassan, MTech from Roorkee, and PhD from Mysore University. Sir is having 35 years of academic experience and worked with the various capacities in the Malnad Engineering College. Presently working as a principal, Naukis College of Engineering, Hassan. Sir's research areas are computer networks, image processing, security, and so on. On behalf of GEC Hassan and participants, I welcome Dr. H. S. Prabhakar, and I request Prabhakar Sir to continue with the first session. Sir, please. Thank you, sir. Once again, I welcome and please.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. At the outset, let me thank Government College of Engineering College, Hassan, Dr. K.C. Ravishankar, Principal, and Dr. Raghu for taking the initiative and then inviting me to be a part of this, to share my thoughts and little knowledge that I have with you people. So once again, I welcome you all. My topic that I have chosen is an overview of the cyber security that what I wish to do, because in the beginning of an FDP, normally, what is the domain, what is the coverage, what are the other information that we need to know. So we will have an overview of the whole subject, so that other speakers will be able to take up specific issues in that and then give an elaborate discussions on those topics. So my agenda is as follows. Initially, I would like to introduce you to the domain. Of course, this domain is not a very new one. Most of you know it already because we are already users of internet and we have enjoyed the benefits. We have suffered due to the the problems that we encounter there. Everything is there. It's a part and parcel of our life. But still, as a formal part, I need to introduce in a formal way the domain of cyber security. What are the vulnerabilities in the security? Because it's a security, we need to talk about the vulnerabilities, the causes, and then the evolution of cyber threat, how it has happened. And specifically certain cyber threats, I would like to go in little more detail, particularly the malware, which are the most prominently problem causing issues in the cyber security. Malware indications and then prevention, little caution that we need to exercise. Similarly, hacking, how to prevent that. Social media profile hacking, that's also a very big issue that is rather raging up these days. We need to be cautious about our own profiles, which is being misused, which may be misused by troublemongers. Database hacking, okay, and then phishing attacks. These are the things that I would like to cover mainly. And then the cyber situation in India. What is exactly happening, because we may be aware of only a few issues, but there are so many things that are happening every day. And today morning, Professor Ravishankar was telling that in the today's newspaper only, there is a report regarding the cyber situation, that how many cyber threats and then attacks have happened in Bangalore itself. And Bangalore has become, being the IT hub, it has become, it will become the hub of cyber threats also. So a very nearby place wherein you will come across a lot of such issues. And of course, solution providers are also available there. Then who are all the cyber players who affect basically the cyber security. And then there are some people who can do a little good job also. We call them as hackers. There may be good and bad hackers also. We'll see what are the caps they wear. And then the types of cyber security issue basically that can happen. And then the importance of testing, because ultimately whenever we develop an application, we need to see that we thoroughly test it. And it is not only for the bugs in the application that do the data processing that we need to check. there are issues pertaining to the networking as well as rather sharing of information, and then securing our servers, that also has to be tested. So testing has to be now rather more comprehensive. Following that, we need to know that our government of India, any government for that matter, has to do that, and a number of laws have been, legislation has have been laid in order to prevent these cyber attacks, and then to prevent the cyber threats. And our Indian government also has taken a cyber security policy. We will have to be aware of that also. And then what is the requirement of human resource as far as the cyber security is considered, and ultimately, as many students and faculty members, young faculty members are here, you need to be aware of the areas where possibly you can take up your works, particularly your research project works or research works. So that will be the agenda for my presentation. So in the first screen itself, I have tried to give you a glimpse of, some latest attacks that have happened in the cyber domain, particularly very near to us. Bangaloreans, many Bangaloreans lose cash. This SIM card, rather, information, people, hack, and then they even duplicate the SIM cards, and they can generate the pins, or somehow they contact the victims and then try to get the pins also, and then they try to misuse. That's one of the greatest frauds, and many people have lost huge amounts of money individually. So that also comes under the cyber security itself. And then a malware attack that has happened, where huge money like 94.42 crores has been siphoned off from the Cosmos Bank, which happened. That's also a very big, that's in 2017. And then it is not only money that is rather stolen, but there are information also. For example, Aadhaar information was told to be, there was a security breach, and the Aadhaar information of millions of Indians had been rather hacked by somebody, and it was made available, sold. It was ready to be sold in the market, rather for ₹500 for each Aadhaar card. And once these criminals get the Aadhaar card number or some contact information, they try to use that information in their own way to rather do some other mischief also. Lot of other mischief also can be done. And another recent threat, I think about 1 or 2 years back, I think we had an issue of a ransomware attack that happened, where many big companies and organizations, so they had to shell out huge amounts of money totaling to around $144 million for rebuilding their network, or paying the hackers to get released their systems, because the systems were rather somehow locked by these hackers, and or the data was made inaccessible, and the hackers demanded ransom. That's why it is called ransomware. Huge amounts of money to release that. Otherwise the whole data, they would rather frighten that they are going to destroy that, or they are not going to release that. So people had to take lot of spend lot of money in paying to the hackers, or trying to come out of that by different ways, or and rebuilding their networks, and then take preventing measures, etc. So, and even in social networking also a lot of issues have happened. You see that Amitabh Bachchan's the great actor, even his rather Twitter account was hijacked by somebody else, and somebody else's photo was put there, and with celebrities and national leaders, I think such type of things also keep happening. So all these are menace to our society, and we need to, as technocrats, it is the necessity, need of the hour now. because morning also I told that because most of our transactions, day-to-day activities have been shifted from normal earlier manual processing system to rather digital systems. Everything is digitized, everything is done by on your computers, laptops, and then mobiles. Mobile banking has been rather has become very widespread. And even novices, and then even so-called rather people who are not that rather literate, they also have to learn for certain things pertaining to these online transactions, and they are using it, but they are not really aware of certain precautions that they need to take pertaining to rather security. And unfortunately, those are the innocent ones who are losing money when they are trying to do online transactions. So this is a glimpse of that. So let us see rather terminologies, nomenclature. People make use of different terms. Cyber security is a broader domain, in fact, which encompasses lot of things. And there are other terms also that people make use of. Information and communication technology security. Okay, sometimes people used to call it as network security in the beginning, but nowadays people call it as ICT security. And then sometimes when it is related to limited to only information stored in the system, data or information, sometimes people use these two terms interchangeably. Security of either data or information is also a threat. And many a times people use these terms interchangeably. But cyber security is a broader world. It encompasses a broader spectrum. So this is one definition that you can find popularly everywhere. Cyber security refers to the protection of information systems from theft or damage to the hardware. It is not just information and data. Okay, it is hardware, software, and the information in them, as well as disruption or indirection, isn't it? Misdirection of the services that they provide. So if there is a service provider and the service provider is prevented from giving the service to the people, then that is also treated as cyber security. So cyber security encompasses hardware, software, as well as information, and also disruption of services that these things are going to provide. In fact, very classical definition of cyber security has been given by the ITU, International Telecommunication Union Technical Committee, in the document numbered X.1205. So that is a rather that also is a very descriptive rather explanation that has been given. It is the collection cyber security. This is more of a technical thing that as technocrats we need to know. It is a collection of tools, policies, security concepts, safeguards, and then guidelines, risk management approaches, actions, training, even that is included. We need to train the users, train the software developers. Okay, and then best practices we need to share, and assurance and technologies that can be used to protect the cyber environment. Cyber environment is basically a set of host machines that all end users make use of, the network interconnectivity, the whole of network with the routers, switches, and then these firewalls, basically firewalls and then routers. So they also become susceptible to be affected, which are used in an organization, and all these things are called as users assets. Okay, assets of the organization. And assets include computing devices, even personnel, infrastructure, applications, services, telecommunication system, everything. So cyber security in fact strives to rather ensure the attainment and maintenance of security. That's very, very important. And some rather objectives are also put rather have been considered as far as the as a part of cyber security. One is availability, then is integrity, which may include authenticity and non-repudiation. This is very, very important. So whenever we get an information, we should be sure that it is the right person who has sent the message. Otherwise, somebody else may be rather playing his role at the back. Okay, and then confidentiality. Okay, so our data should be rather reaching the right rather destination and not anywhere else. So these are the important objectives that the cyber security definition has rather included. So I told you that people make use of information security, cyber security, information and communication technology security. Okay, so all these three terms are made use of. Some authors, some researchers, try to make a distinction between them also. For the sake of researchers, I am giving this. So information security is basically information based assets stored or transmitted, isn't it? In fact, very strictly speaking, which are not using ICT. Okay, that is what people refer to, and sometimes they may use some ICT approaches also. So information assets stored and transmitted using ICT, isn't it, will be an intersection of whatever comes under cyber security and then information security. Okay, so cyber security is rather information based system with all the assets. Okay, so what are the vulnerabilities? Where are the vulnerabilities that we need to know? So in fact, as I told you, cyber security will include the very physical location where our servers are, information repositories are maintained. Physically, the systems and the location, the building, has to be taken care of. Even that, somebody may come with a gun and then, at gunpoint, they may come and then take away the systems or copy the information, frightening the people, taking the passwords, etc. Even that is also, a security issue. Sometimes, we will see them in detail. So a vulnerability is any flaw or weakness in design. This is where, the vulnerability will commence. So if mistakes are committed at the stage of design itself, then, possibly, it will be very difficult to recover it, or rather, repair it at a later point of time. So people have to start exercising caution right at the time of design of a communication system or an internet application. Then, at the time of implementation, the design may be very good, but at the time of implementation, some oversights may occur. You need to take care of that. In spite of these two, when we are operating the system also, there could be some issues. People have to be trained appropriately to use a system. The roles of people have to be defined, doing different operations, and their limitations and other things also are to be taken care of. And finally, the management of the system, because updates have to be made to the system. Whenever we make an update, to match the future requirements, then we need to rather do the testing once again. An integration testing has to be done. We need to test, will it have any side effects on the security. So the first vulnerability is that or a cyber attack that can happen is onto the physical site itself, and it need not be a human being that causes damage to the system. It could be a natural disaster also. So a fire can happen. Okay, or flood can happen, an earthquake can happen. Therefore, if it is a very, very important data center, then possibly our very critical data is being maintained, then it is not advised that people keep that in a single place, single location. Normally copies of those repositories of data and then software, they are maintained in different locations, so that in the worst case, if in one location something happens, the replica is available in a different location. So redundancy is maintained many a times. So you need to see that the building is well protected. You have placed the data center or the information center at the right location where it is free of natural disasters. In case some untoward incident happens, you need to take care that certain protection is already provided. And then it can happen due to unreliable power sources. We need to take care that because services may get disrupted. We need to see that reliable and then uninterrupted power supply is always given to that particular location. Then if you look at the hardware, even the hardware has to be maintained. That is the reason earlier, in fact, the computer centers were, air conditioned rooms and dust free rooms. Nowadays, we have become little rather, careless in particularly with some certain servers. As far as data centers are considered, we need to really exercise caution, because the very systems are made of some physical materials which are exposed to humidity, dust, and then a lot of things can spoil even the system. Okay, you need to take care that it is just kept in a dust free environment. Temperature maintenance also has to be done, because the processors may get heated because they are running 24/7. Okay, and the storages also, we need to take that, we need to have mirror images of data, so that hard disk, because there is a motion continuously running, the disks are running, there is a motor, it may fail. Therefore we need to have backups, as well as mirror disks available there, as far as the hardware is considered. Now the software, we need to take care that design flaws are prevented. So, insufficient testing is a vulnerability. Mistakes at the design stage is a vulnerability. Lack of audit trails, overall checking of the whole total system, is also rather an important thing. If some mistakes are committed at these levels, then that is also a failure of the cyber environment. Okay, then networking, insecure network architecture. Here, more activities will come into picture now with respect to the cyber security here, with our communication network, with the rather routers, and then maybe firewalls and all those devices also, because people may creep in through these fences also that we put. In addition to that, as we told you, sir was also telling, Mr. Sanjay Sahai was telling in the morning, that many cyber attacks have happened due to human carelessness, or intentionally humans committing the crimes within the organization also. So you need to take care while recruiting people for critical applications. For example, for defense, unless and until the integrity of the person is verified thoroughly, such a person cannot be asked to maintain a military secret. We keep on hearing, listening, reading to lots of even military secrets being breached, shared with so many people. So recruiting process also becomes a very important criterion. And then security awareness. People do not know that a small mistake that somebody commits, rather is going to lead to a havoc, and irreparable losses, damages can happen. Therefore people who are working in that critical environments, running critical applications, should be given sufficient training also. But then as an organization, such organizations which are really managing such important applications, they should periodically do regular audits to check if everything is going fine. Are there any loopholes, or while usage is happening, are there any problems that have been encountered, some modifications that have been made, etc. And then continuity plans also, how to make it more and more secure, by the virtue of experience, because these threat mongers, they try to find new ways and mechanisms of getting into the systems, and we need to be aware of that and verify if we have taken care of such issues. Then there are, in spite of all the care that is taken to cover these vulnerabilities, there could be a number of reasons for which cyber security gets slackened. Okay, or some unpleasant events happen. Okay, crimes happen. So first is that some applications are very complex. So when the system is too complex, it is not possible for the developers to test it 100%. So there is a probability that some flaw could occur. Then familiarity of the either the operating system or the hardware or the software, which is very commonly known. So the hackers, if it is a very familiarly rather known systems, then possibly they know the loopholes also. Then connectivity, protocols and services, more and more physical connections. If the network is a widespread network, then possibility of a loophole getting created somewhere is more. Okay, because privileges, n number of ports, are we taking care of them? I will talk about this a little later. Then password management flaws. Even as users, we try to commit mistakes. We use such weak passwords. I'm sorry, there is a typographical mistake here. We are reusing off passwords, and then we store the password somewhere which is easily accessible. We store the password also in our systems only, in a file or in our mobile, and somebody may even get control of our devices and then get hold of all those things. So people advise use a strong password, and then don't write or store the password anywhere. Okay, so you need to remember it only, or if at all you are storing it, it should be written or stored in a encrypted way. At least the hackers should find it really very difficult to rather understand that. Then OS design flaws. If the operating system has itself some flaws, then periodically operating system suppliers also will be giving some rather patches. We need to keep updating our operating systems. And lot of spyware, adware that can come while browsing. We need to exercise lot of caution, because these people find new ways of get rather stealing and getting control of our systems. Then you have software bugs, exploitable, that they become exploitable loopholes. Then insufficient testing, of course, testing. That's where we need to really rather do a lot of work. And then of course we need to learn from the past mistakes also. If we know that some event has happened somewhere, or even with us, there is a possibility that some vulnerability can be exploited. So we are not supposed, or we need to take care that such a vulnerability is not repeatedly rather used or provided to the hackers in our future applications or developments. Let's just go through the cyber threat evolution that has happened. You can see that 1977, very rather beginning days, where we used to see the first rather IBM PCs. So IBM was the first computer which came out with personal computers, where otherwise earlier computers were only mainframe, etc. And maybe when we were engineering students, possibly now somewhere in 1980s, the first IBM PC came to our college. In fact, at that time, very shortly after the advent of those computers and then their widespread usage in rather common applications, the first rather cyber issue, security issue had also started. That we used to get what are called as viruses. These viruses were spread with some games, and people very fond of playing games on computers, and they used to copy it from one system to another system, share it with friends and colleagues, and rather these viruses would rather enjoy a free ride and then get into our systems. And there were viruses like which would lock our system, where the information displayed on the screen, letter by letter, it would start dropping. It was called as a raindrop virus. And there was another virus called as your PC is stoned. Okay, all of a sudden, our application used to stop, and one message used to be displayed on the screen: your PC is stoned. It was called as a stoned virus. And there was another virus which would get activated on Friday the 13th. Whichever month 13th date becomes a Friday, that virus would get activated like a time bomb. We have seen encountered such viruses, and once these viruses would get into the system, we didn't know the solution, and we would in fact lose all the data if there was no backup. And we used to format the hard disk and then once again reload the operating system, etc. So that's where some basic research was done by the troublemongers, and then and the solution providers also, 1970s. Then the 98, etc. 20th century, hacking, websites, rather, internet, came into existence, and these hackers started rather capturing the websites and then putting some illicit information there, etc. We have seen, a number of reports of, even rather, important government organization websites, being hacked. And then malicious code was inserted, was shared, and then inserted into the systems slowly. Then worms and trojans, people, software viruses would be distributed, in the disguise of some other programs. So we would think that, I have downloaded something useful, and stealthily some other program would get into my system. Then, identity theft, phishing. Recently, because of the commercial applications of the computer network, basically mobile and then internet banking, and then online, rather, shopping, etc. So people wanted to steal, passwords and then, login names, etc. So they started, phishing. We will see what it is. Last decade, this problem has become very severe, causing heavy losses for the end users. Then, at the same time, denial of service and then distributed denial of services, are some of the rather, security threats that have posed a lot of problems. And then finally, you see that, even countries, very recently we heard that our neighboring country, had launched its hackers to hack our websites or personal information of our national leaders, and then government organizations. They are keeping an eye on them and then trying to get very critical information. So ultimately it may end up in cyber espionage, where these spies come and steal information, valuable information from organizations or governments. And then finally it would maybe end up in a war between organizations or war between countries also. So this is how the evolution is happening, and now we are at a very critical state. That's what we need to know. So we will see some important cyber attacks. The most important cyber attack, that we need to know will be the denial of service, called as DOS attack, and then distributed denial of service attacks. Then, I have made a list of around 12 attacks here. There could be some more also. These are the most rather frequently encountered ones. And as I told you, the hackers, they find new ways and means of creating problems. Man in the middle attack, phishing, and then spear phishing attacks. I will briefly describe each one of them for the sake of at least the students who are watching this, are people who are not really aware of these cyber security issues. Drive-by attack, password attack, SQL injection, cross-site scripting, eavesdropping. There is an attack called as birthday attack, malware attack, and ultimately cyber espionage, and then cyber warfare. Denial of service attack is basically making a service provider inaccessible to the its users. Okay, so what we do is, suppose there is one website, very important website providing a lot of services to the users. So the hackers, criminals would see that, by some mechanism, they see that that system is not available to the users by creating lot of traffic. For example, if it can handle, some millions of requests, they will send billions of requests, so that, it's called as, flooding the target with lot of traffic, or, sending some trigger information with which the system would crash. Okay. And this is, a very important, because, once this, for example, your bank server, may be down. Your online transaction, server, may be down. Any service, email server may be down, isn't it? So, or any organization server may be down. So, traffic flooding, with the traffic that is being generated from different sources, different locations, not just from one place, but from different locations, is called as a distributed denial of service. The man in the middle attack, is nothing but, where the perpetrator rather, impersonates. Two people are communicating, so he will act like one of them, or he will try to overhear, what these two people are exchanging, or the information. Okay. Then you have got, phishing, where it is an attempt to obtain, sensitive information. I told you about login names and then, passwords, particularly by disguising as a trustworthy entity. For example, if you are doing, internet banking, so you may get a mail that, your account is being updated and you need to give some critical information to see that your account continues further. And, they will rather, send a link. And when you click on the link, you will see a web page which is very similar to your bank's web page only, where they will capture all your critical data, and then they misuse it. Okay. Or they may even give you a call also, isn't it, and tell that quickly do this update, we have sent the link, I am the manager of such and such a bank, etc. So people have to be very cautious. That's why many banks, they tell that we do not rather contact any personal, send messages to change things. And then electronic communication, rather this spear phishing is for a particular individual. See, this phishing is a general one. Okay, simply they send it across to so many people, or sometimes they create such popular links, so that people, when they by mistake they take that link and then go there and then furnish critical information to these hackers. Sometimes there may be personal calls also, rather being made by these criminals. Okay, so they tell that your account will be blocked if you do not give this, some number will some message will be sent to you, you need to reply to that message immediately, or they may ask for some critical information, like particularly login name, passwords, and then PIN, and then OTPs. That's the reason OTP, nobody is going to ask the OTP. That's what people tell, and sometimes unfortunately people share that also. So there is another attack called as drive-by attack, where malicious script is planted into the web pages of the websites, and once it gets there, malware gets into the system of anybody who visits that website. This is spreading of that. Then guessing password. Some people try to guess passwords, so people advise that password should have a definite structure, make it more and more difficult for the it to be cracked. It should have uppercase, lowercase letters, and then digits, some special symbol. So don't make it as simple as simply 1 2 3 4, or or your date of birth, or easily guessable. Okay, rather passwords. So then the people have automated mechanisms to try out n number of combinations, and then somehow they may open the lock. Then you have SQL injections, where you have databases, particularly in the web server. Suppose we have some database management systems, databases are there. Okay, so people send somehow using some forum where there could be a vulnerability. They will send some query through the when they are entering the data, they send such a query to the database that using that query they are able to gain access to the system. Then this cross-site scripting is where malicious scripts are injected into the trusted websites. So this is another mechanism. There are some people who can rather hack the routers, and at the router level they start sniffing, or trying to copy the packets that are being exchanged, that are traveling on the network. Okay, so as data is being shared, that is the reason many a times people would not prefer information to be transmitted in the in the human readable form. That is the reason, for example, WhatsApp tells that, the messages that you are sending will reach the destination in the encrypted form. So where encryption becomes important, because, there are people who can exploit, somehow the network devices like routers, and then catch hold of every packet that is passing through that router, and then, they may try to open the contents and see. If it is in a human readable or accessible form, then we are lost. Therefore it is better that, the information that travels at the network also is encrypted. Then, there is a birthday attack, which where there is a problem in probability theory called as a birthday problem. And that mathematics behind this birthday problem is made use of in order to attack the servers. So I will not go into the details of this. People who are interested may dig into this at a later point of time. Then we have, most popularly happening, cyber attacks through what are called as malware. Okay, viruses, of course, very commonly known. We need to have, vaccines on our systems. We will see what is to be done with all these things. We need to have some antivirus software on our system, particularly if it is a critical one. Otherwise, maybe by some mechanism, some virus may get into the system, and then once it comes, there will be no alternative to remove it, and the whole system will have to be reformatted and then recreated. That is extremely difficult. And then, worms, viruses and worms are very similar, except that, how they replicate and then, travel from system to system is slightly different. Okay, worms, can go independently, whereas viruses get attached to some applications and then, travel. They spread. Then Trojan horses, okay, applications which come in the disguise of something. Okay, then ransomware. I told in the beginning that, people catch hold of, get control of your system all of a sudden, and they tell that, your entire website, is under our control, your database is under our control, and if you want us to release it, then you need to pay so much money to this account number. And if it is a very, very critical information, many organizations have shelled down lots and lots of money to get out of that. So people ask for a ransom. It's something like, robbing at a gunpoint, very similar to that. Then spyware, trying to get some critical, useful information from somewhere. Then adwares are there. How to rather, see that, this malicious code is rather implanted on the systems where people are using, so they may come in the form of, advertisements. And adware itself is a nuisance, because you are working seriously on something, all of a sudden your whole screen gets filled with a number of ads of, some certain products, what and what not. Then there are rogue softwares, which do some, trouble, all of a sudden your system slows down, it hangs, etc. Then, scareware, okay, where, people get, people will frighten people, telling that I have got some very critical information about you, which I'm going to share with somebody else, etc. Okay, they scaring means, frightening people. So maybe, some your photographs are there, with somebody else, rather, which will be leaked to the public domain, etc. Particularly with celebrities, these things may happen. So where, they try to rather, squeeze money, swindle, money from rather, the poor users. Then, spam is another, nuisance, where, your email, rather, mailbox, inbox will be filled with, flooded with rather, innumerable number of mails, and you may find it difficult even to simply select them and delete them. If thousands of mails start arriving, what do? You do not know what is what. So then, malvertising. Okay, malvertising is actually rather, advertising with a malicious intention is malvertising. So new words are being rather, coined, and computer science is one domain, in fact, where a lot of, acronyms and lot of names are created every day. And then, of course, as I told about cyber espionage, particularly where, defense information and then political secrets of countries, other countries may try to, they are interested in that, their objective is to get some critical information and then do some, blackmailing, etc. Okay, or cause trouble to a particular government or the military, create some losses, and then ultimately it may end up in, cyber warfare. It could be between international organizations, or it could be with, even computers also. See, these are just, 12 rather, attacks and 12 methods, that people are making use of in order to spoil the peace of, human beings. There are so many other, at least one more dozen I have rather, captured: cryptojacking, exploits, botnet, rootkit, keyloggers, okay, backdoors, emotets, which are mail trojans. Okay, Grand Trap is another ransomware, farming, where DNS itself is hijacked. So you give some, website at the address bar in the browser, but you will end up in landing with some other website, because the domain name server is hijacked. Okay, that's called as farming. And then social engineering, of course, social media. And then, they try to send you a lot of mails, they frighten you, they do a lot of things, that is social engineering. Okay, and then, cyber stalking, threat messages, sending threat messages to individuals. Okay, that I'm going to cause such a trouble to you, unless and until, some certain amount of money is paid, etc. So these are all, one or the other form of, attacks, where, the internet and then computers or computing devices are made use of. So there is a lot more to know every day, and new things are getting added. So I will just focus a little more on typical few types of, threats, and then, what are the indications, and what are the, how do we overcome, how can we avoid, or how can we prevent, such attacks. So malware, if at all there is a malware or a virus or something, normally these are the indications. So I should be able to rather, know by some mechanism, by some way, that, there is something rather, not correct that is happening. There is something wrong with the system, with my system, isn't it? So symptoms, I should be able to catch some symptoms. So what are the symptoms? The system, slows down all of a sudden. Okay, so you should be rather on the watch of the speed of your system. If it has slowed down, seriously, then there could be a malware in your system. Annoying ads are coming up, a lot of ads are coming, there is a malware. There are repeated crashes, your computer freezes all of a sudden, then definitely there could be a problem. And your disk space is almost used up, you have not stored so much of information, there is a possibility. Your system is disk activity, continuously some disk activity is happening, even though you are not working, continuously, but the system is on, there could be something, happening at the background. Okay, your high, all of a sudden certain applications, cannot be run because there is a want of, main memory, you are running out of main memory, system resources. Yeah, there could be a problem. In our website, the home page has changed without our permission, so somebody has hacked it, isn't it? So when I click a link, it will go to some unwanted destination, definitely there is a problem. New toolbars have come into my, website, rather, browser, new toolbars have got added, then there is a problem. New extensions have joined. Yeah, there are new plugins, there could be a problem with my browser. That means my system is rather, infected. So whenever we tell, this malware have come and they have been installed on our systems, we tell, our system is infected. Fine. So there are some more indications. So antivirus product, maybe you have an antivirus and the antivirus was not updated, and a new virus has come and it has disabled your antivirus. That also can happen. Therefore, it is not just sufficient to keep an antivirus, but you should see that it is updated, regularly. Announces, holding of data, this is ransomware. So people announce that, those criminals, they announce that, we hold your data now, and then as you have to pay so much money. Otherwise, your website will be under our control. It will not be made available to the people, or your database, whole database is with us. Then snag passwords, stealing sensitive files. All these things are malware indication. Some file is missing there. Okay, that's also an indication. So malware, in fact, can penetrate. How can they get into your system? Well, people should know this, because many end users, they should be educated, because particularly children, maybe using our systems at home, when you are not there, or maybe people who are rather not technically aware of certain things, very rather laymen, they may commit such certain mistakes while using the systems. So surfing through hacked website, some malware can come in. Clicking on game demos, particularly children get attracted due to some games that are displayed, and some game may be rather attached with a malware. Download infected music files. So people have learned this mechanism also, that along with music you spread some malware also. Very easy to exploit people's rather interests. Install toolbar from an unfamiliar provider. So unless and until you are sure of the source that it is legitimate, don't take anything. Even opening a mail from an unknown source is not advised. If the source is not unknown, it is better to delete that mail. Set up software on a DAISY source. From a DAISY source, there could be a very good application where they claim that they provide a lot of facilities in the application, but rather, if you have some doubt, don't go that and download that application. Particularly with mobile, hundreds and hundreds of apps, thousands of apps, and millions of apps are already there. Hundreds of and thousands are coming every day. They claim to provide lots of interesting features and facilities, but some of them could be rather very dangerous. Email attachments also, they are called as mal spams. So how do you prevent malware prevention? You need to do not click on unknown pop-ups, ads while browsing, unsolicited, etc. Lot of preventions are there. I am going to share this PPT with you people, so that mobile users, what are you supposed to do? Do not download from third-party resources. Use a good anti-malware program. All that I have told you is covered here. Okay, you should be sure that the OS, etc. are up to date. Update the operating system, okay, because new patches, security patches might have been released. Okay, so don't try to download software from untrustworthy websites. Do not open unsolicited mail attachments. These are all some caution that we need to exercise. Social media profile hacking also, once again, because these days this is another way. A lot of issues are cropping up. Security issues, legitimate and unauthorized applications only we should make use of. Okay, strong credentials should be made use of. Your password should be strong enough, and then you should periodically change them also. That's what people advise. Proper antivirus is once again required for this. And then normally applications have started now making two-factor authentication, multi-layer authentication, that they send a pin also, okay, or an OTP, in order to see that it is ensure that it is the legitimate user. Database hacking, it is better to go for a firewall. Okay, without that, because at least a firewall can take care of certain ports, etc. Okay, login expiration and then changing of the passwords should be done. Login automatically, the login names and the password should get expired, and the user should be forced to change their passwords periodically. Otherwise, the passwords may get into the hands of, fall into the hands of rather criminals. So make sure that the admin level of the website is not exposed with a simple password. Very, very important. Admin level passwords should be periodically changed, because sometime for some reason you might have shared it with somebody, and then immediately that should be changed, so that it may spread, and some criminal may get hold of that, get that information. Change of database prefix can be done. Okay, just to see that it is not easily rather accessed. and then stay updated regarding the latest hacking threats. So you should be open to rather the new rather information that are being shared by various media, that how criminals are exploiting the systems. Then phishing, I have already told you, will impersonate the authentic links, isn't it? And therefore, people, users should read the complete link. Nowadays, the people make use of HTTPS. Okay, secured HTTP is made use of, and people should see that lock symbol in the address bar before rather opening and then performing some operations in a particular rather website, because it could be rather an impersonated or very similar malicious website that where you are working. So HTTPS and then lock symbol you should take care, and then online accounts should be rather checked on a regular basis. So don't leave any of your regularly used accounts, whether it is bank or with some other server. Okay, you just log in once and then log out for a very long time. If you are not using it, maybe that a lot of damage might have already been happened. Change the password frequently, update your browsers. Personal details should be kept secret. Stay updated, use antivirus. So be wary of pop-ups, isn't it? So when pop-up windows come, so don't click on any button there. Use X. This is what people advise. On the right hand top corner, the X only has to be pressed, and then the window should be closed. Let us see the cyber situation in the country. Okay. In fact, as it was told in the morning that India has been a hub of cyber crime, and it has been ranked in the second or third position among the countries affected by cyber attacks. Okay, even in COVID we have come to the second position. Cyber attacks, we are already there. Okay, so we need to exercise a lot of caution. Okay, then India secures a spot among the top 10 spam sending countries. See, if our systems are infected, our countries unknowingly, without our knowledge, could be sending a lot of spam. It could be spreading malicious viruses or files to some other end users also, who are connected with us. So therefore we need to see that we are not a part of this spam sending process, or malicious code spreading. We are not a part of that. We are not supporting that. Rather, we need to take care of that. And India was ranked among the top 5 countries to be affected by cyber crime. This is what Semantic Corporation has told now. And it has also been learned that the cosmopolitan cities like Mumbai, New Delhi, Bengaluru, Chennai have faced the maximum number of cyber attacks. Okay, this also we need to know. So what are the rather issues that have been reported? Viruses, hacking, phishing, cyber stacking. That means frightening people. Okay, then phishing, credit card frauds, etc. So you see that what are the type of attacks that are happening more and more. More than 50% of the organizations have reported to be affected in 2017. Out of them, phishing and social engineering attacks have the highest share of 57%, malware attacks about 41%, spear phishing about 30%, and then denial of service 20%, then out of date software, and then ransomware little less. Okay, so phishing and social engineering, we need to be more and more cautious, because this is the personal data, and an individual getting affected seriously. Of course, malwares and phishing are also doing this. See, there are so many. These are the major causes of cyber disruptions that are happening, but there could be some more also. See, most equipment, see, one of the reasons is being such a big country with a lot of intellectuals and then, brainy people. Very unfortunately, we are not leading in developing our own security software and software hardware also. For example, most of the network infrastructure, security infrastructure that we use, like firewall software, okay, then routers and then router software, etc. Okay, all these things, they are not developed in our country. They are procured from global sources. Global means we need to import that. we depend on organizations from foreign countries, and we use those products only. How are we sure that those people have already implanted certain, because these devices, firewalls and then routers, even if we rather buy from a genuine source, how are we sure that somebody might have planted? Because government and military information, critical information are also traveling in the network. They might have planted some loopholes or their vulnerable points in these gadgets. So I think it is the right time that our next generation people should start thinking, developing products, network products, like network hardware, like routers, and then firewall devices, and then even the operating systems. Our country should have our own, because unless and until it is our own, we cannot be rather 100% believe other people, whoever it is. Big cyber attacks that have happened in our country. So this is the first one. I told you in the very beginning that 94.42 crores was hijacked or siphoned off from Cosmos Cooperative Bank in Pune, and they hacked into the ATM server of this cooperative bank, and then they took the details of many visas and then debit card holders, and they misused. It's a huge, rather sum. Canara Bank ATM services servers also were hacked in 2018, and 20 lakh rupees had been wiped off from various accounts. Aadhaar card software was hacked, and then 1.1 billion crore Aadhaar card holders information was leaked. Then two hackers from Mumbai, they transferred 4 crores of rupees from various bank accounts by exploiting this SIM cards, and then catching hold of the critical information. Then a healthcare, see, even healthcare websites also have some rather important data pertaining to millions and millions of people's records. Healthcare information is there, and that could serve as a, rather people are there to steal that and then sell it to somebody who wants it. Maybe a medicine manufacturing company is interested in knowing what are the different types of patients, what are the age groups, what are they suffering, how many patients are there, and their health situation, etc., so that could be useful for them to come out with new medicines. And doctors may make use of doctors information, patients information could be helpful for this healthcare, rather particularly the drugs manufacturing companies. So people steal data. They may not use it for their personal use. They will sell it. There are people who want to buy this critical information. And personally, these celebrities, rather accounts are hacked, and then the people misuse it so to bring a bad name, rather to the celebrities. Maybe they sometimes they ask for a ransom also. So these are some of the important attacks that have happened in our country. And who are the cyber players? Rather who take part in this cyber hacking and then cyber security issues? Who are the people? We call the first category of people are really criminals only, because we call them as similar cyber criminals, because they seek commercial gain. They do this for commercial gain only, for swindling money from people or from organizations. Okay. Phishing and then hacking the servers, etc. So we call such rather hackers as cyber criminals only. There could be cyber terrorists who attack critical assets, okay, with for their political power and branding. They are not interested in commercial gain, but they are terrorists. They want to bring a bad name to a particular government because they are against the theologies, the principles of a particular government. We call them as terrorists, isn't it? And then cyber espionage, spies. Okay, espionage was only human spies, who used to be there. Now software spies are there, which try to penetrate into the corporates, and then the manufacturing secrets, the trade secrets, can be stolen from organizations, military and data can be rather stolen and then supplied to the enemy countries, etc. And then there are people who are also called, we call them as cyber espionage, cyber spies. And then cyber hacktivists are there. They also want to trouble, a particular organization or the governments, because they want to show that they want to demonstrate disobedience. Okay, because their political agenda is rather not supported by the government, or they want to bring a social revolution, thinking that they are going to rather be rather the next leaders, bringing a new society. Okay, so when they are termed as cyber hacktivists, these are some of the names that people make use of. As far as the security, I mean hackers, hacking, breaking into the systems are considered, we call such people who break into the systems as hackers. And these hackers rather explore new and new methods for breaching defenses and then exploiting the weaknesses in a network. What are the motivations? Why do hackers want to hack? First thing is, many of them, particularly the criminals, they want to do it for a profit. Some people want to do it for a protest. Some people want to do it as a recreation, because they can sleep peacefully only when other people are in trouble. That's a recreation for them. Okay, so sadistic approach, information gathering, okay, simply for the sake of curiosity, and then challenging. So how secure is your system? You tell that your system is secure, let me break it. That could be a motivation. Okay, evaluation of system weaknesses in rather for helping, sometimes for evaluation purposes also, with a good intention also. Some people hack, and even when they are able to, they are successful, they will inform you, say there is a vulnerability in your system. And these people, hackers, they identify themselves, or people brand them, in fact, as to be wearing different hats of different colors. So people who are really they do this hacking for ethical reasons, they are called as ethical hackers, and they are called as white hat hackers. Black hat hackers, they do it for a personal gain. Gray hat, they lie in between. Sometimes, they become robbers, and sometimes, they do it with a rather good intention also. Gray hat, they are swinging in between. Okay, so blue hat people, they do it only for testing within the organization. And then there are hacktivists, they do it for a ideological or political reason. This I have already told. So these are the varieties of hackers that you come across in the cyber security domain. And what are the types of cyber security that is required? So one is infrastructure security. Physical systems should be rather first of all, because your computer server room should be kept under lock and key. You cannot keep it open. Okay, we have seen in movies and in certain situations that the villain comes into the walks into the system room and then gets hold of the system, isn't it? So that server room should be really locked under lock and key. Its password should be very rather secure, and then even the going to the room, isn't it? Or entering the building itself, should be rather, you should have physical security people. For example, our ISRO satellite controlling centers are there. Physical security is required. People should be watching at the gate, with surveillance cameras, that no intruder is getting walking or getting into the campus. That has to be protected. Physical security. Then you have got application security. Very important. Your application should not have vulnerabilities. Then your computer network to which the system is connected should not be vulnerable. Many times, these days, presently, we see that most of our servers, we go for a cloud rather facility where the hardware, the software, applications, etc. Rather we deploy them on the cloud. We take them on rent, isn't it? So that cloud service provider should see that you should as end users, we should confirm that your cloud service provider is providing all the necessary security facilities. Then IoT, as I told you, of late, there are a young number of applications. For example, you may have an automated manufacturing system where very many sensors are communicating with your system, controlling system, or you may have an intelligent home where various gadgets are in a medical system. The patient monitoring system is being maintained, is being done using many IoT systems. So in those locations also, they are susceptible to security issues, and sufficient security verification has to be done. Security features have to be incorporated. For this, after developing an application and then installing, lot of testing has to be done. Very, very important. So what are the testing? In addition to the application testing, that it does the task, the intended task properly, the computations performedly, generation of reports properly, etc. We need to, in addition to that, we need to check that the network where our system is connected to has enough security features, and then system software, whatever we are using, is updated with the latest patches applied to that. And then client side also there are certain security, and then server side also application security has to be checked both at the client side as well as the server side. Very, very important. Not only hardware, software. If you are using a firewall, all the firewall features have been enabled, that we need to check. For some testing reason we might have disabled something, but immediately we should verify that it has been enabled. Lot of issues. Testing has to be done thoroughly, and then periodically, regularly. Lastly, I would like to touch upon the cyber laws. Okay, that in order to prevent the cyber crime happening, the government also has to definitely has to take some measure. Every country has done that. Even in our country also, okay, laws have been laid down to prevent and cyber crime and then punish the guilty. Okay, so that also has to be done. What are the types of cyber crimes that have been listed? Identity theft, then cyber terrorism, cyber bullying, once again some new terms, hacking, defamation, copyright issues, okay, and then trade secrets, freedom of speech, to what an extent it can be made use of, where it is rather not accepted as really freedom of speech. That has to be defined. Or what is the limitation of freedom of speech? We need to define. Otherwise, it could be misused by somebody. Then harassment of people, okay. Then torturing, people, but with frightening, messages and then mails. All these are treated as a cyber crime. Identity theft, cyber terrorism, cyber bullying, hacking, defamation, copyright. All these are cyber crimes only, because for all these people make use of a computer system or a mobile system or a digital system, basically, ultimately. In India, Information Technology Act was passed in the year 2000, was brought into enacted in the year 2000. It was called as ITA 2000 Act by our Parliament, and it is a very big document with lot of care taken, activities incorporated into that. It's a very big document, taking care of the cyber crimes, prevention of that. It has got 94 sections divided into 13 chapters. The document is in fact available, and the gist is available on the internet, and then people can go through that. It has a lot of spectrum, covering lot of things. What are the major things it dealt with in the year 2000, the ITA 2000? Legal recognition of electronic documents. So till then, electronic documents were not accepted as legal documents. For example, you showing your scanned copy of a driving license, okay, for example, or the Aadhaar card, for example, scanned copy. So should that be accepted as a legal document, okay, etc. That was accepted. Then legal recognition of digital signatures, Okay, then offenses and then contraventions. What are the crimes that people do? What are the punishments that are to be given to them? So most of the cyber crimes will attract a fee of fine of at least rupees 50,000 to a few lakhs, and then jail sentence of at least 3 years. Most of the cases. Justice dispensation system also. So the offenders should be brought and under the law, and then they should be punished for the crime that they do. So these are the things. In fact, in the year 2008, after 8 years, an amendment was brought called as IT Amendment Act 2008 EAA 2008, where some more issues were brought into the under the umbrella, brought into the gamut. Focusing on data privacy, information security, what are cyber cafes, because many people had to they didn't have enough facilities at home, and they would go to some public rather places where this is available for rent. Okay, because people could go to a cyber cafe and then commit a mistake, rather crime. Okay, so what are the precautions that cyber cafe is supposed to rather take care? And then making digital signature technology neutral, security practices to be followed by corporate, that was defined in the ITAA 2008. Roles of intermediaries. Okay, then computer emergency response team was rather established. It was recognized. And then child pornography and then child cyber terrorism were included under cyber crime in the ITAA 2008. So child pornography and then cyber terrorism are new things that were added. And then authorizing an inspector to investigate the cyber offenses. So cyber police stations, a cyber police system was rather established. And we have cyber rather stations, police stations, where we can lodge a complaint, and if you are being troubled by a criminal. Okay. Cyber laws. Okay, so this is the statement of objectives for the cyber laws: to provide legal recognition of transactions, and then identifying what is called as electronic commerce, giving protection to that. And then paper based rather in place of paper based methods, electronic commerce can be done. And then the modification of or inclusion of cyber law rather statements or cyber law methods that can be used into the Indian Penal Code, into the Indian Evidence Act, and then Bankers rather Act. Okay, then Reserve Bank of India Act. All these were modified in the purview of cyber security issues. So cyber laws affected these other already existing laws that were created for bankers, for Reserve Bank, for Indian evidences, etc. They have been taken care to include of cyber related issues also. For example, in Indian Penal Code, we can find in the list of crimes all cyber crimes also, and whatever punishment, how it has to be, the inquiry has to be done, and what is the punishment. Everything has been included in the Indian Penal Code. Similarly, bankers. So what are the documents? Online transactions, how it can be performed, etc. Because earlier it was not there, so that was included into the bankers books, Evidence Act, like that. So national cyber security policy was developed in was thought of in the year 2013 by the Department of Electronics and Information Technology, DT. Okay, so their objectives were to create a secure cyber ecosystem, and then to create an assurance framework for the citizens. Okay, now the netizens. Okay, then a regulatory framework has to be done, and national and sectoral level of 24/7 security mechanism for the ICT infrastructure, how it has to be prepared, and to create a workforce for the rather cyber security requirements. So people are expecting that in the future, if 1 or 2 years to come, there is a requirement of more than 2 lakh cyber security professionals in our country itself. And DT has rather made up a mind to create a workforce of 500,000 professionals who are skilled in the next 5 years, who are skilled in the cyber security issues. There is a great demand for cyber security personnel who are knowledgeable, who are creative, okay, and then who can build secure systems. Then to provide a fiscal benefit to the business, whichever organization installs a cyber security system, so some financial benefits are given to those business organizations, ultimately safeguard privacy of citizens data, and then reducing economic losses is one of the greatest objectives. Economic losses should not happen because of the cyber crimes. And then finally, enable effective prevention, investigation, and prosecution of cyber crimes. So they should be brought under the law, okay, and enhancement of law enforcement. So these are some of the important objectives of the National Cyber Security Policy. Finally, I would like to quickly touch upon these cyber security human resources. Okay, as I've told you, there is a shortage of resource persons as far as cyber security is considered, and lakhs of openings will be available, are readily available. People who are really rather seriously qualified in this would be able to rather get very rather remunerative positions, very rewarding positions. So we need to advise our students rather to rather focus particularly their studies, but their project works, etc., on security aspects also, so that they will be able to get a good rather placement. Inadequate research in academia, this is what people are looking at. Academicians, a lot of image processing and other things are happening, but in people have identified that in cyber security a lot of research is yet to be done. And for creating certain equipments, network equipments, it is not just computer science professionals who are necessary. We would require to have, because computer communication engineers are also required. So it is a multidisciplinary field now. CS and then EC, both branches have a lot to contribute together to cyber security. In fact, there are not many courses available. We at UG course we end up in computer networks, as well as as an elective network security as one course. But a lot of things are to be really taken care of. In fact, there is a scope for developing one complete computer rather cyber security itself as a separate specialization, particularly in the post graduation. And of course, there are certain colleges and universities which are offering post graduation in cyber security. So there should be more and more courses that are incorporated into our syllabus, which cover systems area, networks area, analysis area, keeping an eye on cyber security. They should be able to cover the market needs, present day needs. Our curriculum should be updated. We should take care of future expectations, and we should prepare our students for new roles in the industry and in the society. So we need to have some industry institute collaborations with those companies or organizations which are working rather on cyber security. So we need to identify certain organizations, and then maybe we can have an alliance with them, an MOU with them, and then jointly do some projects, and then get the latest information from the industry, so that our students will become better products for the cyber security purpose. Finally, for the researchers, I have few data with me, little data with me. What are the areas on which possibly research could be taken? Encryption, tougher encryption methods, cryptography, there is definitely a scope. Malware detection is another domain where people can work on. Anomaly intrusion detection, so rather recognizing that some anomaly is happening into the server, okay, watching its rather activities. Intrusion detection is a very rather active area, in which of course research, a lot of research is going on in this area. Authentication process, multi-level authentication processes, which are better, one can really think of. And then security in mobile devices, very important, because most of our transactions have become mobile. Then cyber forensics, social security networks, When a crime has happened, how do you analyze and then try to rather rather identify the criminal, how to identify, how to locate, okay, the criminal is a cyber forensics. Lot of work, can be done. IoT has become very, very popular these days. Many organizations and even intelligent homes are being built with IoT, and therefore security is very rather vulnerable, and then a lot of security issues are there. Cloud security definitely there. And finally, for the end users, how do we see that our netizens, okay, common citizens, their transactions become more and more secure. Okay, so with this I would like to conclude my presentation. Before concluding, I would like to thank again the organizers of this faculty development program for giving me an opportunity to share some information that I have and share my thoughts with all of you. I believe the information is quite useful to you. I have tried to cover the entire, domain, as much as possible. Maybe in the future, rather sessions, in the next sessions, experts from specific domains will be covering, will be going deeper into specific, areas where possibly, you can explore more and more and then get more information. So I thank you one and all, and I thank all participants for a patient listening. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. It was a very nice and very informative session. Sir, shall we have a few minutes for question and answer, sir?
Yeah, maybe we can take.
Yeah, I request participants, if you are having any specific questions, you can raise your questions and get the answer from the experts.
Or they may post some questions also, so that they can be answered either in this session or in future sessions.
Yes.
Whatever I am able to answer, I will do that now. And if there are some questions which cannot be immediately answered, I may pass on the message to you people.
Yeah, definitely. Please, if you're having any specific question, you can even either post to us, or you can even ask in online. Please, if anybody is having, you can. Otherwise, yes, sir. I think they'll post. Sir, there is one question.
Yeah, there is one question I saw about the IoT security. See, in the IoT system, maybe I employ IoT in a manufacturing plant. I employ IoT in a critical application, or maybe in a home also. There is I mean, in an IoT system, we see that it is not continuously monitored by any human. That is IoT, isn't it? You want the system to be automatically rather monitoring, watching the things, taking the readings, and then immediately rather initiating, the necessary action. So there is a possibility that your sensor may be rather, hijacked by somebody. Weather forecasting, for example, sensors have been kept in different locations. So some rather, troublemonger may rather, get hold of these, critical locations where these sensors are kept, and they may start sending, wrong information, so that your predictions become, wrong. So IoT, particularly when it is completely the at the end point where you deploy the IoT devices, the security is not given a lot of importance. And because they are becoming more and more widespread, there is a need to exercise caution, so that they are not taken over. The control is not taken over by somebody else in the network, because your devices are also on the public network now. So if there are not many questions, we will try to end up the session.
Yes. Sir, thank you, sir. It was very
Okay.
nice session. In the beginning, sir, you told it about 1 hour, but it went for 90 plus minutes, and without like knowing the timing, the 90 how 90 minutes went, even we could not able to find it out. I think our participants are more benefited out of your session, sir. Thank you for part of our FDP program as a supporter, as a guider. We will definitely, if it is online, offline, it would be a more interactive, sir. I think. Anyway, thank you very much, sir, for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Dr. Raghu. Thank you, Dr. Ravishankar. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. 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 Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
sir.
Take
Thank
care.
you
Take
very
care.
much. Thank you. Thank you all participants. I once again thank Dr. Prabhakara on behalf of all the participants. And we'll have our next session exactly at 3 o'clock. I request all the participants to present at 2:50 with the same link. Okay, I'll again share the link at 2:30. But 2:50, we please join, and we'll start our next session by Dr. Jalesh Kumar. It is on evolution of innovations, security techniques. So we will have a lunch break now, and material and all we'll share it. Won't link it here because all the sessions are recorded here. After recording everything, I'll share all the 14 session link to all the participants. And if any other thing, please write to us so that we'll make it to be arranged from our end. Thank you very much for your patience listening and joining us from morning 10 till 1:30. Now. We'll have a lunch break, and we'll have our session starts at 2:50.
Sure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.